actually don't know, is there like an amnesty on cards at a particular stage in this tournament? At a certain point, do you suddenly decide to take the book on at that stage? There seems to be an edict now that's like FIFA. I mean, we've been weak on certain things. We've been weak on, say, armbands and corruption and various things, but seem to be strong on time wasting.
Good morning and welcome to the Indo World Cup on day 3 of the tournament. My name is Aidan O'Hara and I'm joined by Irish Independent soccer correspondent Daniel McDonnell, who's finally made it to Qatar. Dan, how's things?
Yeah, I'm good. Dialing in from Doha for the first time, and the little known trek from Malta to Doha with a little bit of a stopover in Vienna. But yeah, we're here. We're in World Cup country, not quite football country, I don't think, but it's World Cup country nonetheless. You arrive into the airport during the USA Wales game, trying to look at screens in the corner in the distance, see what the crack is. But yeah, we are here.
What's the heat like when you step off the plane?
To be honest, and I've seen people talk about this, it's not that bad really. I think it was pretty intense around Friday, Saturday, but by the time I got in, it's the early hours of the morning here. Just like for people at home, like the Wales USA game, that 7 p.m. game is like 10 p.m. local time here. So it's finishing close to midnight. So I know like football in Spain sometimes is a little bit like that with some of the kickoff times. It's quite unusual, but yeah, I got my bearings at my hotel, went for a little bit of a wander around, and yeah, like it's not necessarily jacket weather, but it's 2 layers weather at night. Yeah, I mean it's from what I've seen of the games, it does seem like the conditions are quite a bit of cramping up and stuff like that towards the end of certain games. So clearly it's still intensive enough, but it's maybe not as attritional as people were suggesting. But I mean, that just could be just a mild enough day or two by their standards here, and it could completely go in another direction.
I thought for a minute you were going to suggest you were cramping up by the end of your long journey, but it's good to know. It's good to know that's not the case.
I just went for I just got in there and went for a walk. So there's a 24-hour McDonald's within close proximity, a 24-hour coffee house. I'm not entirely sure where I'm staying, like in the context of Doha. I'm not a million miles from the city centre, I don't believe, but I mean it's one of these places, yeah. Like it's like this is the thing about this tournament, and we're maybe coming back to a recurring point. Like the World Cup is such a meeting of people from like all parts of the world, and clearly there's a massive shadow hanging over this one. But there's still obviously small glimpses of it around the place. Like I'm on my flight. There was a couple from Costa Rica behind me. There's a few Australians on the plane. There's that sense of, for some people, this is like still a really big trip. On that little walk to my 24-hour McDonald's, there was I met a group of like 8 Argentine fans crossing a zebra crossing, and sort of good spirits. The local TV here, I put it on, like it's their version of, I don't know, RTE1, and live footage of a local reporter, again with singing, dancing Argentines around them, somewhere around the main drag. And I mean, that does seem to be the recurring theme, like that the South Americans, maybe Central Americans, with a few Mexicans around as well, they are the ones who've travelled in great volume and still probably will provide a lot of the noise in this tournament. Maybe less. So I did see a forlorn-looking England fan who must have been out all day in the McDonald's, which is obviously like the epicenter of the cultural hub of Doha and this neck of town.
Yeah, naturally, it would tend to be. Certainly, Ecuador provided plenty of colour on the opening day. We've 2 South American teams going today. Argentina starting at 10. Mexico play Poland at 4, and in between and after those games, Denmark and Tunisia at 1, and France and Australia at 7. Of those, which of those games are you looking forward to seeing?
Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to France Australia because I'm going to it. So like that's definitely my highlight of the day. I think if you're Irish at this tournament and you're a little bit down the food chain of getting into games, I think a few Irish have been rejected from Argentina, Saudi Arabia. I had a feeling that was going to happen to me, so I cancelled it before they could reject me, just so you wouldn't actually have to cope with the
Yes.
disappointment. But it is the way they calculate it with these things is that if you're a non-competing nation, you have a better chance of getting into games involving European teams than you would, say, a game involving sort of a South American and an Asian side. And I think Argentina and Brazil games are going to be tough to get into from our perspective, maybe in the group stage anyway. But I think like so. I don't know. In terms of the day, I think there's an interest in seeing teams maybe rather than an interest in seeing games. Like the Mexico Poland probably will be the best
Yeah.
contest because it's like a crucial game for both of them. Where I think we're looking forward to seeing France, but I don't think Australia are believed to be any great shakes. The way the Saudis are performing, they don't. I mean, none of the Asian teams seem to be great shakes at the moment. Pardon the pun. And I don't think the Saudis are expected to be that good. So that could be one side. Denmark, Tunisia, again, you're sort of expecting Denmark to win, but I don't know. I mean, the predictions yesterday. I mean, you were right to predict that England would do a number in Iran. I just didn't expect it to go that intense. I thought my boys now Senegal were actually doing their job on taking the Dutch to a scoreless draw, and they pretty much nearly got there, but didn't. And then yeah, USA Wales was the tight game we probably thought it might
Yeah,
be. But I think
it was funny that
there's a pattern there. Like
there
I
is, yeah.
think that maybe some of the Asian sides you wouldn't be madly optimistic about their prospects.
No, definitely not. I mean, Argentina, Saudi. The talk is of the amount of runners around Messi, and he's as fit as he has been, and the switch obviously to Paris Saint-Germain, it didn't exactly revitalize him initially, but he seems to be he's building up to this tournament as a lot of players are, even the ones playing for the top teams, that this is probably his last chance at winning a World Cup. And Argentina have kind of come in under the radar a little bit, despite having one of the greatest players of all time, if not the greatest, in their midst. And certainly Saudi aren't going to, you can't see them putting up much of a fight to them. So again, between that and France, Australia, a bit like today, you're looking at probably a couple of one-sided games, like the way England was, where just the class and is going to be telling. And I think sometimes with, obviously there's been talk of the Winter World Cup, and I think you alluded to in the previous show that these players haven't been flogged, whereas previously some of the bigger nations have come to tournaments with players who've played in, Champions League and have been finishing their season in late May and trying to pick it up for the World Cup. Some of the top stars might be quite fresh actually coming into this tournament relative to how they normally would be.
Yeah, like I mean, yeah, I think with Messi and certainly like there's a feeling that he's sort of been peaking this way. Certainly with England, like you could see. I mean, I'm not gonna bluff. I didn't actually see the game. I'm only working off the highlights of it, but it does appear that there was a freshness around some of their better players. Um, it's just I mean, it's hard to know. I mean, like some clubs have had intense Champions League schedules. Some players have had intense Champions League schedules. And as I said, like I was watching. I did make the last few minutes of the USA Wales game. I popped into a nightcap in the local cafe next door, which nightcap being a green tea, and just happened to sort of the volume of players going down in the last few
Yeah.
minutes sort of showed you that in a game that's a real contest, like not a one-sided game. Like it's easy to say a team looks fresh when they're winning, they're scoring 5 or 6 goals against a completely inferior side. But in this game, there was sort of a meeting of equals. It did look like it took a bit out of quite a few of the protagonists. So like maybe that's a sign to come in some of these more grueling sort of in the balance games.
Yeah, I think the fixture, you could end up with a look of the fixtures. Like Wales have Iran next, which would seem to be an easier game, obviously, than the USA against England. So they should have a little bit more energy, despite of what's taken out of them. They shouldn't need as much energy to beat Iran, which they'll obviously have to do if they want to get through. It was one of those games where quality wasn't the best, but it kind of felt like a World Cup game, and in a lot of ways, Holland and Senegal did too, where it was, it wasn't one side sitting back trying to contain in the way that Iran was, or in the way that Qatar was setting up to be. It felt like a proper game that the winners, or as it turned out, the draw in the Wales game. With Holland, they really had to eke it out and really had to fight for it. And as you talking about the tiredness levels, that teams are going to have by the time this is all over. Like, you talk of, they have to play 7 games to win it. By the time you add up all the injury time in those 7 games, it'll probably be the best part of 8 games that they're looking at playing.
Yeah, can you explain something to me here? Because again, as I said, I was having my nightcap with a couple of locals who wouldn't be great on the English front, and I saw that there was 9 extra minutes in the Wales game, which was brilliant because I'd only managed to see the last 7 minutes of it, so I was actually going to get to see some football, and I was going to engage in some small talk about how there must have been an injury. I'm glad I didn't, because I think it would have probably caused some confusion, because it doesn't seem like that was the case at all. There seems to be an edict now that's like FIFA. I mean, we've been weak on certain things. We've been weak on, say, armbands, and weak on sort of elements of corruption and various things, but seem to be strong on time wasting.
Yes, that seems to be certain. I am rise to the small occasion. In the England game, there was 14 minutes in the first half because of a bad concussion, a bad facial injury to the Iranian keeper, which is
okay.
On another day at another World Cup in another venue, it'd be a huge talking point around concussion and the lack of protocols that were around it. The keeper was out, he was gone, he stood up for a minute or two, took a kick out, and then said, actually, no, I have to go off. But there's so many other things going on that it kind of got relegated to the bottom of the news agenda. In the Wales USA game, there was, I think USA made a substitution after 66 minutes, then another, I think a triple after 74, Wales made one after 79, USA made one after 88, and then Wales made a double on 90. So if you add up all those, plus the normal amount of injury time for cramp, etc., you probably do get to 9 minutes. I mean, Gareth Bale was speaking afterwards, and Gareth Bale looked like a man who did not want to play 9 minutes of injury time. He looked exhausted. He even said it himself. I don't know where that came from, but it seems to be something that we're going to have to get used to, like this idea of, they have to put it in for 90 minutes. It's looking like 105 minutes, where, you could...
But we can't really, yeah, but we can't really complain about it, though, can we? I mean, it's probably one of these things that, it would actually drive you mad. Like, even the Malta-Ireland game on Sunday, the ability of the Maltese lads in a bad friendly to sort of knock 30 seconds, it would infuriate you if you're chasing the game. It's just one of these things where it probably is the correct policy.
Yeah,
it's ensuring that the game has the right amount of play. I mean, is it rugby where they obviously stop the clock, and a big complaint is that the games are taking too long now because there's all these stoppages, and it's peppered by stoppages, and you're in the ground for 3 hours or something, so you can only have around 10 points. And there is a sense
bring it back
that
to your seat, though, in fairness.
At your seat, of course, but it won't be happening here, which is obviously bad news. People with the delays, but it's probably something that you should be striving towards as a concept, that you do have the ball to play. It's just that we're so unused to it. It's sort of why are you taking a strong stance on this gamesmanship that we consider part of the game? It's sort of it's just completely unexpected sense of we're going to crack down on something that probably shouldn't happen, but now people are so used to this being the norm. Don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, you're half expecting in the last minute of that game, when the ball dropped to Bale from the halfway line, and Acosta, the USA player, produced one of the great cynical fouls to just clip his ankles. It was one of those where it was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. But
you'd approve of that as a former centre half. That's exactly the type of challenge that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I once did one of those, and the opposition manager came over at the end and shook my hand and said he was a former centre half as well, so he really appreciated it. But it was a sort of challenge that you could see a referee kind of saying, actually, no, we're going to clamp down on this cynical fouling and give a red card. And it was probably the right decision. I think it would have been, you could have made a point for it, and certainly VAR wouldn't have overturned it.
Do you think Gareth Bale would have scored? I think
Had it been after 25 minutes, I think Gareth Bale's first touch would have set him to hit it on a second touch. But he took a touch, he took another touch. I'm not sure. I think, a bit like his golf shot, maybe a bit like his golf shots, it would have pinged straight down the middle as to where he got it. But yourself, if you've hit him,
He's such a big game
he is.
player. Like that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like it's probably like he's such a big game player, Bale, that he is one of the few players that when that situation was set, maybe even Acosta was thinking, "No, we have to do
Yeah.
this. Like we have to completely." I think you do it anyway, right? You probably do it if it's a centre half, but just particularly so because it's Bale.
Yeah.
I was sitting there. He's going to stick this
Yeah.
in. Like this is written in the stars. Like, there's special things actually happen
Yeah,
to him.
they do. Yeah.
But maybe not that special.
No, it would have been. Look, I mean, you can see him kind of. Hopefully, I mean, it would be great for him as a player to really make a mark on the World Cup, even a couple of games against Iran, and then who knows against England, what they might be able to produce. They were quite good in the second half now last night, where they kind of changed a couple of things around, brought on our friend Kiefer Moore, who we spoke about the other day, and he made a big difference. He's unorthodox, but he's absolutely a handful to deal with. He's not the sort of there's no centre back would fancy marking him, but he brought a bit of a focal point to them, and USA didn't really know what to do with him. They seem to be, it can happen in games sometimes where a team goes in after a dominant first half thinking, we're better than these, and suddenly the other team turns around, changes something, and USA couldn't quite get back on terms. I think a draw was probably a fair result in the game.
Yeah, and the thing that's set up for them now, really, isn't it? That if they can go and beat Iran, and then they hope England beat the USA, and then you're in this situation where you can have potentially a mutually beneficial draw in the round of 16, or in the third game. But now, I mean, I don't know. Wales don't necessarily want to be playing Holland here if that's the case, but they definitely want to go through. So it could create a slightly unusual dynamic around it. Like I think the USA would be probably unhappier with that result because it really puts pressure on them to do something against England, or else there's a danger that their fate is sort of out of their hands. Yeah. So this is, I mean, even after a game, Wales were totally in that. Even the whole Wales thing, it was just like an Ireland major tournament thing where you get that 1-1. You get that 1-1 in the first game, and it feels like a win maybe in some ways. And now suddenly it's sort of the group has maybe weighted in their favour a small bit.
Okay, thanks, Dan. After the break, we'll be back with some predictions for today's games. Okay, Dan, before we get into predicting today's games, can you see any prediction of controversy coming in the games today, given what went on yesterday?
Yeah, look, I mean, in fairness, yesterday's show probably caught in the hop a small bit because it was clear this story was probably brewing a small bit, and I probably had my head in Malta, Ireland, and didn't anticipate the extent to which this would sort of suddenly accelerate. I must admit now I was preparing to travel sort of across from Vienna to Doha when it really started to kick off today, and I don't know, like, have I changed my initial instinctive view yesterday that I would sympathise with England on it? Like, it seems like they're getting hammered now. That certainly seems to be the case. Some very strong commentary, probably juxtaposed against the Iranian gesture, which is incredibly powerful and incredibly brave. I suppose of all the teams to be playing in that scenario, like when you have players who are, I don't know, I mean, like taking a really bold stance, which is even divisive amongst their own fans. I mean, that's strong. And so, placed against that, the English reaction looks weak. Here Roy Keane is saying they should have worn it for a game. And maybe I do see that point of view while still retaining my slight sympathy for them in the sense that, they've tried to make an effort, but then it looks like they've ended up making half an effort. And they're attracting grief to teams that are making no effort. The teams which have made no effort at all aren't going to receive. And like it's a weird place for them to be in. I don't know what you make of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, having, as I said yesterday, having the courage of your convictions until it might give you a yellow card is not, doesn't seem to be very strong convictions. I was a little bit surprised that they didn't do something in the end, be it Gareth Southgate wearing the armband or something along those lines. I know Alex Scott did on the BBC. That's obviously not quite the same thing, but it's something. It is gonna run. It's gonna run and run within this particular thing because they, as you said, like they've raised the issue where other teams haven't, but in a sense they haven't really followed through on it. So like between the FA, FIFA, and the players, of course, are stuck in the middle. The players, are the players going to go against their manager? Everyone, anytime you speak to a player, they tell you like the amount of focus that it takes to play a big game. So having something there that distracts your focus is very, very difficult. I know there's a greater picture in all these things, but like I do have a degree of sympathy with the players for finding themselves in this position hours before the game to be told that no, you're not able to do something that you'd planned on doing. That would have all been part of their preparation. And like they play again on Friday against the USA. There will probably be something out of that as well. But as you said, like the Iran protest of not singing the anthem was very, very powerful and is something that is likely going to have far more consequence for them than anything like a booking or any kind of sanction would have had on the English players or any of the other countries who were planning on wearing the armband.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's going away. And clearly, every day there seems to be an issue that FIFA are being accused of sort of mishandling it or fudging it or sort of bowing to the local authorities on it. And yeah, like I feel like it's an agenda setting issue at the moment around the English team. So I don't see how that disappears easily. And we will see what particularly when England and Wales play each other, later in the group.
Yeah.
I actually don't know, is there like an amnesty on cards at a particular stage in this tournament or something? Sometimes they do have them at a certain point, do you suddenly decide to take the booking at that stage?
Do you take a booking? I don't know. I don't know.
What if they
do they
go
have
completely cynical and get someone a second booking to get them ruled out of around the 16 tie they fancy? Let's just go pure.
Or if they're already through against Wales or against the USA, then you could put an armband on and get yourself a booking. I'm not sure.
It's just, I don't know. It's a daft discussion, really, isn't it? And it just reflects like
it is.
It's almost. I do think the thing about the armband, and I did see this point made in a piece by someone. It might have been Jonathan Liu piece in the Guardian. I read a few things. I mean, it is true. Like no one really knows what the One Love armband truly represents in the context of this competition. It's sort of like as a gesture itself, it was a little bit wishy-washy and vague, but it still stood to represent something, and they haven't been able to follow through on that. But in of itself, it wasn't necessarily a hugely defiant thing either. But the fact they haven't even been able to execute that, you can understand why it's attracted derision. But I still do have that little bit of sympathy for their no-win situation around it.
Yeah. So it's difficult to predict what controversy will come tomorrow. So it's today and tomorrow, but there's likely to be something. But we'll try and go for the easier option in some ways of predicting the games today. So we'll start with Argentina, Saudi Arabia. Dan, anything beyond the comprehensive Argentina victory?
No, I feel like I've made the mistake of underestimating scores because you just assume it's going to be tighter in the first game, in some of them. So. Let's go for Argentina to 4-0.
I'll take 5. Why not? 5-0. We go with that. Denmark, Tunisia. I'm going to go 3-1 on this for Denmark. I think we're both in agreement. They're a team that could be a strong force in the tournament.
Yeah, and as I said, I was sort of listening to one or two experts before the tournament who were predicting that some teams would be sturdy and quite difficult to beat, and like Iran was one of them, and they've conceded 6, but like Tunisia was another. Now I just do feel though the African nations, as we mentioned it with Senegal and AFCON and these, they're maybe they have a little bit more steel around knowing how to like really, really make these games grueling if they need to. So I do fancy Denmark, but I might still revert to the lower scoring here and go for maybe a 2-0 Denmark win.
And in what's likely to be probably the most competitive game of tomorrow, Mexico and Poland. It's, the battle of Lewandowski and Jimenez. How do you see that one going?
Yeah, I was trying to it seems like the Mexican camp don't seem to be particularly chuffed with life. And it's Tito Martino, isn't it? The ex Barcelona manager, who's there. And I don't know. There seems to be the coverage there seems to be a little bit. They're not maybe. There's just some argument at the press conference today, a bit of a back and forth around um, the team's style or something. Apparently, it was all very fraught, and the polls, by comparison, were all
Okay.
high fiving and great form and happy with life. And maybe I'm just reading too much into that by then predicting Poland to win by a 2-1 margin.
I'll go for 2-2 in that, the first draw prediction of my own. And I think in the final game that you'll be at, I'm going to take France to win 2-1, probably just a slow start, but I think they'll still have enough.
Yeah, that I think that would be a more dramatic game than people are anticipating, and I think that would probably be welcomed. I don't know. I think France probably have its capability. I kind of wonder, like, they did win the tournament the last time, like, and they made a very slow start. But sometimes you have these teams that are underperforming. They take on the flat track bully thing. Like, you see Liverpool at times struggling this year, but then they can open up and like score 9 against Bournemouth, or hammer Rangers. Like, France will click maybe at times in this competition. I'm not sure about you fully trust them to go all the way. So I don't know. They could win 3-0 tomorrow, potentially, or tonight, shall we say, by the time people listen to this. Not to give away any secrets.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
yeah, I think France maybe might win it in that instance. Yeah.
Well, thanks very much, Dan. I enjoy getting acclimatized to Doha, and we'll speak to you again tomorrow. Thanks.